Welcome, everybody. We are the Club Tirionwa Nolondili. Thank you for joining us. Today, the session is going to be in English because we have two experts. Well, I see them just right next to me. I don't know how you see them. Hello, everybody. And we have, well, the people who usually come to the club and other special guests as well. So thank you, everybody, for coming. I want to ask Chad and Matt just to speak a little bit slowly. That will help us a lot. I want to let people know that I have activated the closed captions. Check if you see them, so that can also help you to follow up better. But because we are talking languages, so we should understand each other because that's the common in all of us. So we are Chad and Matt are experts in Tengwar, in which mode? All modes, I'm guessing. So they have all the tips that will make us experts as well. Maybe not tonight, but with this, we are just going up with that. Well, all yours.
Okay.
Well, and people, we can interact. We can ask questions during the presentation. Para los que hablan español, de repente pueden escribir en el chat si es que quieren alguna aclaración y tratemos de ayudarles. A mí me gustaría ir traduciendo, pero no es imposible, así que si hay algo que tienen alguna duda, lo pueden poner y les podemos un poco aclarar en español si tienen alguna pregunta en español. ¿Listo?
Despacio, okay. Despacio con el español, ¿no? Bueno.
No habla español.
Okay.
You need to enable me to share my screen.
Absolutely. Okay.
Wonderful. All right. Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
So I'll try to speak slowly. I know sometimes I get told I speak fast, so try to rein in the excitement and try to be understandable. Please interrupt with questions as we go along. I think it will be much more beneficial and entertaining if we do that. So just a bit of an introduction for myself. My name is Matt. I live in Houston, Texas. I've been studying Tengwar for not too long, maybe 2 or 3 years. And about a year ago, I started working on it with Chad, and we have developed a way of teaching it to others that I think will help smooth out some of the bumps that I experienced along the way. And again, if you have questions, please let us know. Okay, so I understand that last week this group went over some basics of Tengwar in Spanish mode. So hopefully a lot of this will be familiar and it will just sort of reinforce what you learned and fill in some of the gaps that maybe people have missed or forgotten. But I want to make sure that that we break that connection between Tengwar and Elvish. I think for so many people, they're scared to try to learn Tengwar because they draw an equal sign with Elvish, and because learning Elvish they think would be really hard, they put off learning Tengwar. but of course, Tengwar is just a writing system. It's Quenya for letters. The singular would be Tengwa. And in world, it's a writing system that was created by Feanor. And so when we talk about a writing system, you can change from one writing system to another. That's called transliteration. And when you change from one language to another, that's translation. And they're independent. And I demonstrate that with this little diagram on the right using a phrase that I think anyone who's read the Silmarillion should know and love. It says, "Day shall come again," in the upper left-hand corner. So this is using the Latin alphabet writing system, and of course, it's in English. We can transliterate that into Tengwar in the upper right hand, and that's what this says. It's still in English, though. It says, "Day shall come again." In the lower left, we translated that into Quenya, Aure Untulava, but it's in the Latin alphabet. And then in the lower right hand, it's both transliterated and translated. And you can see that the Tengwar look different on the right hand side, because it's two different languages. So today we're going to be talking about the English mode. We're going over English. That's actually a lot of the Tengwar that I come across is in English. It's not even in Elvish. I have a picture here of the title page of The Lord of the Rings, and this is all in English. The top part here, this is in Cirth, which is another writing system developed by Feanor. I know that a lot of people associate it with the dwarves because they kind of took it and ran with it, but it was also developed by the elves. But that's just in English. And then the middle is in English in the Roman, and then the bottom here is in Tengwar, and it is also in English. So again, this is all just to sort of break that fear of, oh, I can't learn it because then I have to learn Elvish. Of course, with this group, since your goal is to learn Quenya, you're all, daring, bold individuals, so that isn't scary anyway.
I think it's worth pointing out at this point maybe that generally speaking, the mode used to write Quenya is also the mode used to write Spanish.
There are some characteristics of Quenya mode that are very similar to the Spanish mode, but not all of them.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, it's true. In some of the ways that the Spanish mode deviates from the English mode, it's similar to how Quenya mode deviates from English mode. So as we're talking about modes, that's of course the sound that each Tengwa makes depends on the mode. This is oftentimes confusing, I find, when I'm first talking about Tengwar to people who are just starting with it. Since you guys already started dealing with Spanish mode, this is a topic that's maybe come up is more familiar, but it's not referenced in the text very much. It comes up a little bit. There's a passage here from book 1. This is when Gandalf is first talking to Frodo about the ring. He says, "The letters of Elvish of an ancient mode, but the language is that of Mordor." And then he goes on to give the ring inscription. And so with the modes, that just talks about the different sounds that are assigned to the Tengwa. So I give the example using the Latin characters, what sound does what I would call the letter J make in the Latin alphabet, or CH or V? All of these characters are used in the different languages in different ways. They make different sounds. And so those collections of different sounds or different characteristics will then make a mode that is unique to that language on how they use the writing system. So there's Tengwar modes that Tolkien developed for Sindarin, Quenya, Black Speech. He also worked in English. He developed a mode for Old English. And then, of course, the fan communities have created modes for all sorts of languages ever since then.
What we did last week was, well, based on Quenya mode, just so you know.
Oh, it was Quenya mode. You didn't do a Spanish mode. It was Quenya mode.
We didn't. That's right.
Okay, great. I don't know Spanish mode, and I'm pretty weak on my Quenya mode. Chad knows Quenya mode better, so if you have very specific questions, I'll toss them over to Chad. So this is from Appendix E. It says, this script, referring to the Feanorian letters, was not in origin an alphabet, that is, a haphazard series of letters, each with an independent value of its own, recited in a traditional order that has no reference either to their shapes or to their functions. And I love Tolkien's description of our alphabet as a haphazard series of letters, because that is essentially what it is, right? I mean, they started from pictograms and just sort of developed into shapes that we've assigned sounds to, and there's no systematic relation between them at all. He goes on to say the only relation in our alphabet that would have appeared intelligible to the Eldar is that between P and B, and their separation from one another and from F, M, and V would have seemed to them absurd. And you can see that P and B both look alike and have similar sounds, P and B. And so that's a reference to how systematic Tengwar is. Now, if we go over the anatomy of the primary Tengwar, each of the primary Tengwar have what's called a stem and a bow. And there are different variations in each of these. The stems can point down, they can point up, they can be short. Sometimes this is called no stem. And the bows can be doubled, or they can be closed. You can see this bar down, we call that closing the bow. And they can point to the left or to the right. And between all of these permutations, you can come up with a whole array of different Tengwar that will have different sounds associated with them. Now, the sounds that we make during speech are pretty complicated, and scientists have a very systematic organization system for classifying these different sounds. It depends on where your tongue is making contact with the roof of your mouth, the shape of your lips, the airflow, if it's restricted, if it's exploding out of your mouth, if your vocal cords are engaged. Very complicated. Tolkien would have been very familiar with this. And what he did is he took this system and condensed it down to a simplified table, which then he mapped to the Tengwar. So this is the table just as you see it in Appendix E. And it depends on tongue placement and mouth shape, the manner of airflow, and the voicing. So now if we look at this first row, all of the bows are facing to the right. And we can see the different variations in how the stem is arranged. We talked about, so this top one, we have a long stem pointing down, and then we have a single bow, and we have a long stem pointing down, and then it's doubled. Then we have a long stem pointing up, a single bow, and then it's doubled. And then we have no stem, it's doubled, and it's singled. So we have every different option for an open bow facing to the right. And then in the next column, it's the exact same thing, only all of the bows are closed. And then in the third column, it's the same thing, but the bows are all facing to the left and they're all open. And then in the fourth column, they're all facing to the left and they're all closed. So these columns, Tolkien called series, and the different series correspond to different tongue placements or mouth shapes. And then the different rows he called grades, and these each have a different manner of airflow or voicing. Now these bottom Tengwar down here don't follow the pattern above. They're just additional Tengwar that are used for the extra sounds that don't fit this pattern. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Chad, and he's going to walk through this table in more detail and go over the sounds that each one makes. But this is an important concept for just understanding the structure of how Tengwar works and what makes it systematic. So if there are any questions, this is a great point to jump in and interject questions you may have before Chad starts walking through the table in more detail. Are we good? Okay.
Okay, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to explain how the individual Tengwar, the way the individual Tengwar, they all sound. So basically, the way he was saying that first column there, they're all dental, which means that your mouth is shaped using your tongue against your teeth or directly behind your teeth. And then that every one of them in the first column all have to do with your teeth. The second column, they all have to do with your lips. The third column, they all have to do with your soft palate in your mouth. And the fourth column, they all have to do with the back part of your hard palate of your mouth. So the way he was saying earlier, where there's downward stems and upward stems, the downward stems are always plosives, which means that the air is exploding out of your mouth. Some people call those stops. The upward stems are called fricatives, and that is air escaping through small holes in your mouth. Instead of exploding, it's escaping. Some people call those spirants or spirants. So if you look at row 1, and you see that all of them are facing down and have one bow, the single bow means that it's unvoiced. Your vocal cords are not vibrating. All you do when you vibrate your vocal cords is you add one more bow to it. So with that example, I'm going to go over really closely the tinko, which tinko is the dental plosive unvoiced. And basically, since it's the name is tinko because of the sound that it made to the Quenya speakers, the sound t, that's what they did. So basically, if you look at the dental plosive unvoiced, which is the very top left, that is tinko. And now look at the red letters that show what it represents. These are the English letters in red with the IPA pronunciation below them. So if you think about the way that you make the sound, this right here, this is exactly how Matt showed me that this is easy. So this, when he started telling me this, I knew this was going to be easy. So basically, if you put your tongue like you're going to make the T sound, your tongue is right behind your teeth and the air is being stopped by your tongue. And then you go, t, t. You just pull your tongue away and the air escapes. That is a dental plosive. And your vocal cords are not vibrating, so it's unvoiced. If you put your tongue in exactly that same spot and let the air escape in the same way, but you vibrate your vocal cords, it won't make the T sound. It will automatically make the D sound. So that t, t becomes d, d. So a lot of times what I tell people to do is to put their hands over their ears and do it, because you can feel the vibration in your head when you make the D sound. The important part is to not vibrate on the vowel that inevitably comes after someone is speaking a consonant, because you kind of go ta. The isn't the part we're worried about. We're worried about the t. The t isn't vibrating at all. The duh is. So if you look at the difference between T and D, tinko and ando, the T is a downward stem with one bow to the right, and the D is a downward stem with two bows to the right. The only difference between those two letters is that you vibrate your vocal cords to make the D, and you don't vibrate your vocal cords to make the T. So it's t, d. And they're plosives, so they're downward stems, and they're dental, so they're open. Now, if we move over to the right, to the labial, they work the same way, but instead of your tongue stopping the air, it's your lips stopping the air. So the very first one, parma, it's named that because it makes the P sound. That is labial, plosive, unvoiced. It works the same way. You're going p, p. Instead of your tongue going t, t for T, your lips are going p, p for P. The same exact mouth shape and the same release of air vibrating your vocal cords, your mouth will not make the P sound. It will make the B sound. So, p, b, b. So you see the only real difference between P and B is the same difference as T to D. This is it's a physical thing that's happening here. So you see the top row, for each individual one, the one directly below it is the same thing, but you vibrate your vocal cords. We could keep on going. Let's go to the palatal. The palatal, calma, the reason that's named calma is because in Quenya, that stands for the k sound, but not in English. In English, that's ch, like Chad. So that basically, you're going to put your mouth like you're going to go ch, like Chad. And you see that is a downward stem because it's still a plosive. The air is still exploding. But because it's palatal, it's facing to the left. And it's open. And it has one bow because it's unvoiced. If you put your mouth in the same position and have the air escape in the same way, but you vibrate your vocal cords, that ch becomes a j, because ch, j, ch, j. The only difference is you're vibrating your vocal cords. Let's go over to velar and we'll do the same thing. That in English stands for K, but in it's named quese because in Quenya that was que. So that's one thing that's a little hard to get right when you're first learning English. And it is smarter to learn English before Quenya because Quenya can be confusing. So, and I know you guys mostly speak Spanish, and I'm not sure how much harder Spanish is going to be in Tengwar than English. I've looked at it with you guys a little bit, but Tolkien really designed this for English because the majority of it is English. The majority of what he wrote is English. He named it as though the Quenya came first, but it's not true. English came first, and he pretends that Quenya came first. So looking at the velar, plosive, unvoiced, quese, that is k. So if you put your tongue to make the K sound, kind of on the back of your palate, k, and you do the same thing, but you vibrate your vocal cord, it's going to go g, g. So k, k, g, g. The difference between K and G, k, g, is the vibration of your vocal cords. The velar, unvoiced plosive is left face. It's down stem because it's plosive. It's left facing because it's velar. And it's one bow because it's unvoiced. And it's closed because the velar is the second series of the right hand side. And the same way with the ungwe, standing for G here, it's the same thing, but with an extra bow. So really fast, I'm not going to spend as much time as I did on those first ones, but we're going to go through all of them. I'm going to go right here to Sule, which used to be called Thule. That is th, as in thin. That is a single, that's a single bow, but you see it's a rising stem, single bow open, and that is th, like thin. The one below it is the same thing, but voiced, the, like then. So then we're just going to do the top four this time. So let's go over to Foreman, which makes the f sound. That is a labial because you're using your lip to go f, f. The F sound is from the air escaping around your teeth. F. If you vibrate your vocal cords, it goes v. It makes a V sound, and that's the ampa below there. That's a fricative voiced labial. Looking at the palatal fricative unvoiced, that is sh, sh. That's vertical. It's a upward stem, open one bow because it's unvoiced. Sh. And then if you vibrate your vocal cords, it'll go z. So it's like a ZH. And you can see that I've got those written in the red to the right there. A little tougher is the huesta, which is velar fricative unvoiced, and that is the it's the CH of Bach or Loch, not the way we Americans usually say it. It's the correct German pronunciation of those two letters. And then the next one below, if you vibrate your vocal cords, that CH, which is a KH really, it becomes a GH. Just like the top two, K became G, now KH becomes GH. They work the same. And so that gets you the top 15, or the top 16. The bottom two rows, they're not quite, they look the same, but they don't follow the same rule as far as the voicing goes, because all of them end up being voiced. But these become pretty easy pretty fast because you have to use them so often. So dental, nasal 5, the reason it's a nasal is because it's dental because your tongue is still in the same spot as if you're going to do a T or a D. But instead of moving your tongue out of the way and letting the air out, the air comes out of your nose. So it's nasal. So it's The air is coming out of my nose when I do that. So if you think about that, and you go over to the labial nasal, your lips are closed like you're going to say a P or a B, but the air comes out your nose and it goes, that's M. So that right there shows you the Newman is open, and it looks kind of like an M in our language, in our alphabet. That's Newman for N. And then the labial version is closed, Malta, and that's M. The one next to it is not really used in English. It is in Spanish. It's not used in English. The next one to the right of that, Nuame, is velar nasal, but it actually stands for NG, and it's like words that end with NG, like going or coming. That is what the velar nasal is for number 5, far right corner. And you can see they still follow the pattern. There's no stem. It's facing to the left, 2 bows because it's that row, and it's closed because it's on the far right. Now the bottom ones are approximates. They are consonants that sound approximately like vowels. So the first one is ore, and ore stands for R when it does not precede a vowel. We'll get to that more in a second. Vala it stands for W or U because there's not really a U, there's a W. Anna stands for Y, especially when Y is a consonant, but also when Y is part of a diphthong, which we're going to get to. And then Vilja is not really used in the English mode. Any questions on this page before we go any further?
I had a question, but I forgot. Oh, no,
If you,
I don't remember.
If you remember, just interrupt and we'll come back to it.
What's the sound of the GH?
GH, you talking about fricative voiced velar,
Right.
which is unque.
Uh-huh.
So that is like aghast or ghost. You're supposed to say the G and then make the H sound. We don't do that.
I would think that theoretically it would sound very Dutch.
Yeah.
That sound is very common, right, in Dutch.
Yeah.
It's very softened to almost not be present in English. United
States people just leave the H off.
Yeah.
We don't say the H. We just, for words like that, it's almost as if the H isn't even there.
Yeah.
I think Arabic's got it, if you might have heard it there.
Okay. So the example that you read whenever you're seeing this, they always say aghast, 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 but you're supposed to say aghast. And if you pronounce it like you're pronouncing Bach or Loch, like the German CH or the KH, if you pronounce it that way, but you change that K to a G, it'll be right. It's no different. If you look at the top two, it's no different than changing that K to a G. That K of Quesse, where it's K, and then you voice it and it goes G. The next one is H and G. It's the same. So the K becomes G and the H becomes G.
My question is, this is supposed to be the English mode, and you don't use it.
Well, the thing is, in English, you're supposed to say that. But I say Americans like y'all aren't, like you're not Americans. I mean, North Americans don't say the H's. We leave them off.
There's a lot of different variations within English. And, some dialects of English use different sounds than other dialects of English.
Yeah.
This is the old English one. That's what you're saying.
It's not the old English, because old English is a different language altogether. This is
the medium English.
This is real English. This is real English as what J.R.R. Tolkien spoke, not what Chad the redneck in Texas speaks.
Okay. Questions, people? Willie had a question from before. He told me.
Okay.
Willie, ask your question. He's shy.
He forgot
it. Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot. Okay, go on.
Okay, no problem. If you remember, bring it up.
Just to interrupt.
Okay, so if we're good, we'll go to the next. Okay, so this is the bottom of the Tengwar table, and it doesn't follow the rules that we were talking about at all. Now, that seems like it will make it more difficult, but it actually becomes easy quicker because they look so much different than the other ones. You don't get them confused. So here we have, and we have them drawn the same way. Matt has them drawn here. We got the table on the left and what they stand for on the right. So the very first one is Roman. Roman means it's R when it is preceding a vowel. If a vowel is the next letter after R, you use Roman. If the next letter after R is not a vowel, you don't use Roman, you use ore. So that is Roman, which is R. And if you look to the next one, you'll see Arda. And Arda, if you look in our English, what it stands for, it doesn't stand for anything. It's not used. The next one is very easy. That's going to be the easiest one of all, Lambe. Lambe always stands for L, no matter what language you're looking at. It's always L, Lambe. The next one is Alda, and Alda doesn't stand for anything in English. It's not used. However, we're going to tell you, sometimes you'll see people use these things, and what they're doing is they're mixing other modes into English. You'll see it sometimes. The next one on the next row is silme. So this one confuses people sometimes. Silme is S. It is the letter S at all times. The next one is silme nuquerna. Silme nuquerna is just silme inverted. Nuquerna means inverted. And basically all it is it's making room for you to put a vowel above it. However, it is still the sound S, but it is also a C when the C sounds like an S. Earlier, go back one slide, Matt. Right up here at the top right, we have quese, which is the velar plosive unvoiced. Point that out to them. Mm-hmm. That one right there. That is K or C when it sounds like K. If you have a C in a word and the C sounds like a K, you treat it as a K.
Like Celeborn.
Celeborn, exactly. Cannon, Casada, Erica. Those are all K sounds. So then going back to the next one, that right there is an S or a C that sounds like an S. So that is words like city or citrus. It's a C that sounds like an S. Now, the thing that confuses people is we will sometimes see people using the regular silme for C. The regular silme is S. The silme nuquerna can be S or C when it sounds like an S. You'll quickly realize it's an S. The part that people mess up sometimes is they use the silme for the C. But even more often than that, people use quese for the C that sounds like an S. So it would be like writing kitty for city or citrus for citrus. The next one is esse, and it works kind of like we were just talking about with the C, but that is S when it sounds like a Z or a Z. So if you think about the sound of those, you'll get it right. So esse is Z, like in zoo, or S that sounds like Z, like was or his or theirs, stuff like that. Make sense? The same way that silme had the nuquerna that was inverted, the esse also has an esse nuquerna, which is inverted. So basically, if you need to put something above the esse or the silme, you just invert them, and then you can put the theta above the silme nuquerna or the esse nuquerna. If you needed to put something below them, use the other one. Use the silme or the esse if you need to put something below them, which we'll get to soon. Hjarmen is H in English. Hjarmen is H in the English mode. So it's just have, hello. It's those types of sounds. The next one is a little tougher. It's Huesta Sindrinwa, which is the WH. Like, again, the United States people don't say it correctly. The word when or what, W-H-A-T, W-H-E-N, W-H-E-R-E, E-W-E, I mean. Those words are supposed to be where, what. It's Huesta, H-W. Again.
Like who?
Like who, exactly. Like,
and one of the biggest things we see people getting confused on with this early on is if you look at the shape, it looks very similar to the Tengwar for SH. You can see it's a single bow opening to the left with a tall upward stem, but you'll notice that the SH, it does not connect and has no tail, whereas the WH, it makes a full connection and it has little tail. It's kind of subtle, and sloppy handwriting can make that confusing. And it's the only one that has that sort of behavior.
You'll try to write who, like WHO. You'll try to write who, but because you don't write that one correctly, it'll look like you.
Shoo.
Shoo or ju. It'll look like one of those two.
Yeah.
So then the next one is yanta. And this one right here, we are trying to stop the misuse of this one because that one is only really used in non-English as a non-English vowel. Whenever you're going to use it in English, it is always in a diphthong. Every now and then, you'll see someone use it in English, but what they're doing is confusing it with other modes. In English, the yanta, there's only a couple of times he used it as a Y. All the other times, it was a glide. It was the second half of a glided vowel. And the same thing with the O, with the ure that looks like an O. You'll see in Quenya mode, that is a U. Show him your forearm, Matt.
Oh.
Aure intulva.
Yeah.
That's ure.
Okay, so that's an A-U. Aure.
Aure intulva.
But this is Quenya mode.
That's Quenya.
This ure, I advocate not using it at all in English mode. That's the most common. But you do find some people who use it, so it's good to be aware of it, that they're using it as a W.
Right. The thing is, the best thing to do is not use it. But when you're trying to read someone else's stuff, you're going to see people using it. And don't say they're wrong. Just know the best thing to do is not to use that one. If you look at this little comment down at the bottom, you'll see some people choose to use ure for W, but vala is more common, which is what we suggest. That being said, you will see people using ure for W. That's because in Quenya, that is you. Okay, next. Unless we have more questions. We had questions? Preguntas?
I did have one.
Okay, X sound, that's coming. We're gonna get to, or do we get to X in this?
It just comes up as in an example. If you want to jump to it now.
Let's. Rondir is really good. We'll get to that in a second. He's already really good at this. So,
all right.
So, anyone else? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, which guy?
My question is about the S sound, because in Spanish we have question marks for opening and closing, right? And the silme is like an opening question mark.
It looks like a good question mark. Yeah, it does.
But the silme nucuerna doesn't. It looks like a 9. Like, can I do the question mark thing, or it will confuse people? Is it wrong? Why is it not the same symbol? Just
I don't think it will confuse people. If you were to just rotate silma nucuerne 180 degrees, there's nothing else that looks like it to be confused with. People would recognize that as silme.
Yeah. Or if you do the silme, you rotate it where it looks like a right side up question mark. No one's going to confuse that either. And
it's interesting because sometimes you'll see different, like really what happens is this has an extra little bend in it rather than hooking around from the left. It kind of bends to the right and then comes up. People will force it one way or the other, depending on if they have a theta above it. And sometimes the theta they'll put inside, and sometimes or to the right or to the left, both above and below. And so they'll just kind of squish that line around depending on how they're writing it around the theta. So you see enough variation that, people will know what you're doing, and it's fine.
When you see us talking about this and us doing it, Matt and I, and it seems like nobody else worries about this like we do. We try and make it where it's as easy for you to read as possible. Because if it's going to be harder for you to read it with me doing a regular silme than a silme nucuerna, I'm putting a nuquerna. I'm going to put whatever it is that's going to make it where you can read it as easily as you can.
Okay. Aaron is asking about the X sound. I have the answer. X sound is not a sound. It's two sounds.
That's right. That's right. We're going to get to that really soon. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Okay, here we go with vowels. Vowels, the reason why a lot of people teach the vowels first, but we discovered that the vowels become so easy that we can just throw it in after we've taught some of the basics of consonants. So looking at this, these are all your tetar. Vowels are expressed using diacritical markings called tetar. Tetar, singular teta. The tetar are either placed over the following Tengwar or in English mode, or a carrier if no Tengwar is present. So basically, you've got A, E, I, O, U, and Y there. Those diacritical marks are what goes above the consonant to let you know what vowel sound to make between consonant sounds. The gray carrier there, you only use that when there is not a consonant to put it above. It's basically like a placeholder. So with that in mind, looking at dad, the A there, we're going to do dad. So that's a D, and then there's an A, and then a D. You'll notice that in English, the vowel goes above the next consonant. That's because most English words end in consonants. Languages, consonant sounds, exactly. So languages that most words end in vowels, such as Quenya and Spanish, the vowel goes above the previous consonant. So if we were writing dad in Spanish, we wouldn't write, then again, we wouldn't write it D, A, D. The A would be above the first D. But then again, what I want to say with this is you would not write dad in Spanish mode because dad is an English word. You would write padre in Spanish mode, not dad. You don't write words from the other language. It's a good practice to not do that. Since we're writing English, do English mode, especially for English. You start doing some of the others, we get into the conversation where some people write some of the Elvish names in English mode. That's fine. But you don't want to write English using Spanish mode, and you don't want to write Spanish using English mode. We're teaching English partially because that's what we know best, but also because the majority of what you're going to read online and in the books is English. So going again, we're going to do dad again. D, A, D. The same way, we've got mom. M, O, M. The same, here we got B, R, which precedes a vowel. So you use Roman, then O, and then that TH is the voiced TH. So it's the. It's not the, it's the. So then after that, you've got the E above the ore, and the ore is an R that does not precede a vowel. So that's brother. And the noise that you make with that TH, that's important to realize that that's two bows for that TH. Brother. Then the next one, we've got family. F, A, M, I, L, and then here we've got a Y at the very end of the word, and you see it's above a carrier like what we've got written above, because there is no consonant to put that theta above, because there is no consonant after the Y. That is the final letter, and you don't have a consonant to put it above, so you just put the carrier there to show that this theta is above nothing. Okay. Anybody any questions for that, or you want to go over something some more? Okay,
We're good.
next. Okay, diphthongs are a little tougher. Diphthongs are basically, you've got two vowel sounds crushed into one syllable. Oh, it's like Manuel had a question.
Take it back.
Was that an accident?
Y bueno, Geraldine, no sé si les puedas explicar tú mi pregunta porque
I will try.
mi inglés es pésimo. Solamente tenía la consulta del teta, creo que dijeron, siempre es al inicio y al final, cuando termina en una vocal.
Sí.
¿Sí? ¿Tú entendiste? Yo no entendí.
Un poquito. Say it in English to make sure I got it right.
Is the theta... What's the question? ¿Cómo le pregunto otra vez? ¿Solo
Claro.
es al inicio y al final?
Sí, el teta siempre que una palabra acabe o inicie con una vocal, bueno, en nuestro español, ¿no? Tiene que ir con el teta acompañado siempre.
Words that end in vowels always have the theta above a carrier, right?
¿Estás preguntando por el portador o por la forma de escribir?
Claro, por el portador que va abajito de la vocal, ¿no?
Ya.
Es que va siempre al final y al inicio.
Inicio no. Es
Al
diferente.
final sí.
I don't understand.
Al inicio no, porque va sobre no, porque puede ser que hay otro consonante que lo lleva. When you have a word that starts with a vowel, does it always go over a carrier? He's asking.
So I thought he was asking when the vowel is a final letter.
He asked about both cases.
Okay.
When it started and when it ended in a vowel.
Oh, so are we asking if a word starts and ends in a vowel?
Or.
So
either case.
Okay, so let me say this, and
we need an example, Alejandro. ¿Tienes un ejemplo de lo que estás
preguntando? No, I've got some examples. So let's just do let's do ammo, AMMO, right? Ammo. So AMMO, the A would go over the M, right? AM. And then you could do another M, but then the O is the last one. So you have to put that O over a carrier. So if every vowel goes over the next consonant, and if there isn't a consonant there, you put the carrier. So if a word begins with a vowel, then that doesn't make any difference. You're just putting the vowel over the consonant because the first letter is a vowel and the next letter is a consonant. You just do it like normal. That's kind of like I don't know, like an, like the letter A-N, like the word A-N. That's A over N. The real question is only going to be at the end, which is what we were doing with family. Go back to family. So the only time it really matters here is whenever it's at the end, when the last letter is a vowel, you don't have anything to stick the vowel theta over. So you can't leave it blank. So you put the little carrier there.
Ya, creo que ya entendí. Tú te estás refiriendo, Manuel Alejandro, en que cuando hay una vocal al principio, la teta va sobre la consonante, pero si la vocal está solo al final, estamos hablando en inglés, tiene que ir con el portador.
Claro, sí, a eso me refería. O bueno, esa era mi consulta, ¿no? Lo siento.
Porque siempre va
sobre... Okay.
Porque siempre va sobre el consonante que sigue. Y si no hay nada que sigue, tienes que tener el portador.
Claro, ya entendí. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Krista.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. Okay. So we got that right. The beginning of the word is easy, right? Because it's like everything else. It's no different than if we just had the word add instead of dad. If you took that first D off of dad, it would say add. Right? Like an advertisement ad. Okay. So okay, so
you could write, I don't know, Matt, you're sharing, and when you're sharing, you have the option of allowing us to you know to
write
do
on the screen.
Over it.
Okay.
I've never done that before.
I've never done that. Annotate. That's something that I can share.
Menu, there's like a long list of options. One of those should say something like allow participants to write over or something. I don't remember the name, but it only applies when you're sharing.
Enable annotation for others.
Exactly, annotations. That's it.
Okay.
So now we should get a little pen there, and chat, you can click on the pen and draw.
So like there's Chad's example.
Yeah.
Okay. Mo. Right? The A doesn't matter. It's going over an M like it always would. The O needs to have a carrier because there's nothing under it.
Now it's going to be confusing since this group is going to trying to tackle multiple modes, keeping the rules straight, because in the Spanish or the Quenya mode, where the vowels go over the preceding, if this were a Spanish or a Quenya word,
just do amo, do love, do amo, A-M-O.
Is that one or two M's?
One.
Oh, what?
Is
there an eraser?
There you go. So this is amo in Espanol, and it's because the A is the letters, the vowels go above the consonants in Spanish mode, but it's the first letter that doesn't have something to go above because it's the first letter. So dad would be fine if it was a Spanish word, but amo doesn't have a consonant before the A. So it's the first letter in Spanish words that will require the carrier, because they're the ones that are stranded. In English, the last vowel, the final vowel, is stranded. In Spanish, a initial vowel is stranded. So they have to have the carriers.
You can see that we were talking about this before.
Yes.
That second word, this is Quenya.
Yes.
It's Entuleva. And so you can see there's a carrier. It starts with an E.
E.
Hey. Oh, okay. E. E, you mean the letter.
That's E. That's not E, not I.
Not I. It starts with a sound.
Nt.
And actually, in Quenya, this is a nt sound. Ntuleva.
Yeah. So this is why it's a bad idea to learn more than one mode at a time.
I love that.
If you speak English, you should learn English first, even if you don't speak good English, because English is what most of the stuff is written in the books. When they like my Hobbit book right here that's in Spanish, the Kirth is in English. And the Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings in Spanish, the Tengwar is in English.
Thank God they didn't translate it.
because the people who are doing the books don't know what it says. They don't change it. They just see it as Elvish. They have the same exact opinion of this writing as what most people who want to learn it think. They don't have any idea that it says normal words. They just see this foreign alphabet and they say, we're not even going to change that at all because we don't know what it says. Not knowing that it says the Lord of the Rings, and if they changed it to El Señor de Anillos, they could do it in Spanish mode.
For Minotauro's next translation.
Yeah.
Edition.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so next. We've got that down, right? Because the diphthongs, you really need to know that before we start the diphthongs. The diphthongs can be confusing. So you don't have to have them memorized because memorizing the vowels, it comes really fast. Hardly anybody messes up the vowels ever because there's only a few of them and they're in every word. But diphthongs are two vowels crushed together into one syllable. Instead of saying the individual vowels, you piece them together. Right here, if you look, you'll see that the U, the normal Tengwa that is used for W is used for U. So let me read what it says at the beginning. Diphthongs are made by placing the first short vowels, theta, above the second glide vowels, Tengwa. So there you've got the A, and you recognize the A, theta, and it's above the U for the diphthong. That's ow. That right there is how you say ow. One syllable, ow. Next, you've got an E above a U. That's ew. The next one, you've got I above a U. That's ew. And then the last one is what gives it away. That is O above a U or O above a W. And that's where we say the glide for U/W is actually the W consonant. It's the one that we use to write normal W words. So you use that vala for the diphthong. That's the one that we were saying, don't use ure, use vala. That's the one. So down here below, we've got shout, which is SH right there, and then O above U, and then T, shout. Next, we've got down, D, and then O above W, and then N, down. The same principle applies to the others, but there's a little bit of a difficulty on the end. So right here, we've got EA. And you see the E above the A, E theta above A tengwa. And let's go ahead and do seat right now. You've got S right there for seat, S, and then E above A, and then T.
I'm just pointing out that this is a new Tengwa that we haven't seen. This doesn't have really any value on its own. It wasn't in the table. It's just used as the A glide in the diphthong, at least in English mode.
It's not used for anything.
It's not used in any of the other modes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because the modes that use Tengwar for vowels, they use a different one than this. Okay, so that's EA. The next you're going to see AE. That's the A theta above a carrier with a dot below it for the E. That's I. That's
and you could theoretically do this same thing for the EA.
Yes.
I have the E over a carrier with the A underneath. I've even seen that.
Mm-hmm.
That's unusual.
Christopher did that on one of the books. Yeah. He did that for earth. The word earth, he wrote that way. Yeah. So anyway, we're showing you how to make these diphthongs for when you see, this is only going to happen when you see two vowels next to each other and they're in the same syllable. That's one thing that we get people screwed up on. If the two vowels aren't in the same syllable, don't do this, because a diphthong by definition is two vowel sounds, one syllable. Next, we've got AY, which is it's kind of like today. So there's the A theta over the Y Tengwar. And now looking at the word today below there, we've got T, O above D, and then the A over Y diphthong. That's today. If you listen to the way that sounds, it's A. It's a diphthong, but it's all together. A, right? That's what a diphthong is. Today. The same exact sound can be done with an AI. And if you look at that, there's the A theta above the same Tengwar, the Anna Tengwar for I. You can use that Tengwar for AY or AI. So then that would be, I can't think of one like certain. You could do that.
Rain.
Rain. There you go. That's a better one than what I can. Okay. Rain, exactly. Rain. But it's all one. You don't say rain. You don't say two. Yeah, you don't say two syllables.
It's not rayin.
It's not rayin. If you say two syllables, you shouldn't do this. If it's one syllable, then you do. The next one is EI, and that is the E theta above the Ana Tengwar. But there also is another acceptable way of writing the I glide, and that is the Yanta Tengwar. You see how the Tengwar is different there. We show two different ways of writing the I glide. You can use the Ana, like what the Y is, or you can use the Yanta, which is the far right one. Either way, either one of those is right for I, but only Ana is right for Y. Because of that, Matt and I only use Yanta for I, and we only use Ana for Y, and it makes it where people can read it faster. It's not normally done. Most people just use Ana for everything, but we have adopted doing the Yanta for the I because people can read it immediately when they see that. So if you see Ana or Yanta with a theta over it, that's either an I or a Y, but they make the same noise. So it doesn't.
They seem confusing now, but I think as you write and then go back and revisit what we're saying here, it will make sense as you're like, wait, which way am I doing this? And you'll be like, oh yeah, they said for AY, they just use this one. And for the I glides, we just use this one.
Yeah. And you don't have to. That's what we do. We use the first one and the fourth one, but you could use the two middle ones if you wanted to. A lot of people do. A lot of people do just those two middle ones. And we use the outside ones.
There's a question here.
Okay, what you got?
If there are triphthongs in English, I got it there, or are there?
So the other day when we were talking about Spanish, I was trying to think of some English triphthongs. I couldn't think of any English triphthongs. Matt, can you think of any English triphthongs?
No, I can't.
So when we were discussing Spanish, I was thinking English triphthongs. It would have to be. The thing is, the whole thing about it is, it has to be three vowels in one syllable. Otherwise, it's not a triphthong. It's a regular plus a diphthong. If you've got three, I guess you could say beautiful.
There's three letters there, but I'm not sure there's three different sounds.
It's one sound, but it's not beautiful. It's not beautiful, right? And you can't really say that in one. You can't really say that in one syllable anyway, right? Yeah. In French, it would be.
Google says there are 5 triphthongs in English.
What does it say they are? Because I don't think so.
Our. aya, fire, aya, playa,
And see,
mower.
this is where I think
Mower,
regional dialects
value.
would change things. Like, yeah, I don't know.
No, that's not true. Here's why. Here's why. Those that are listed, I see flower, and buyer, and coyer. Those are more than one syllable.
Hour.
It's just hours to syllables.
It's a diphthong followed by an e.
Yeah, that
Hour.
Maybe there's somebody. Maybe there's somebody somewhere.
Hour. You know, I could hear it in a non-American accent.
Yeah, flower.
Hour.
Flower.
Hour.
The thing is, to say flower in one syllable, you're not saying flower.
You're saying something else.
You're saying something else. So,
unless they're from Boston.
Yeah. So
anyway, they're ours.
I was trying to think the other day when we were talking about Spanish, with y'all have like 3 or 4, right? Triphthongs. I was thinking Spanish. I was thinking English triphthongs. I can't think of anything like that. And I looked it up then, and I was like, "That's not one. That's not one." But I saw beautiful, and somebody was saying, "But maybe if you're talking French, when you're saying beau, 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 even then it doesn't sound. You're not making all 3 of those noises. You're not making those 3 noises. You're just putting those 3 letters down. They're silent. You know, silent letters are not diphthongs.
Or it's not.
Okay. So are we good? We got something else to go. Let's make sure we don't pass anybody up. I don't want to go so fast that someone doesn't understand. We good?
Well, I know my last name is pronounced differently.
Bausch.
Different ways.
Yeah. So would yours be
Bausch is how I pronounce it.
Without the
or
CH
the German way.
Bausch.
Bach.
Yeah. So her name is B-A-U, and then the CH, which is the Huesta CH, right? So it'd be B-A-U, and the A-U. Go back to the diphthong page. Yeah, there you. That's her second set right there. That right there, you would put a B. Here's the B.
Feels so sloppy.
Yeah, it's all right. And then that's the U. Here's the A. And then she's got the German CH, which is that. Bach. But you don't even say the last one, right?
No.
So
if it as bow, like you bow, or bow wow.
And if you think about, okay, so now this is a good thing to talk about right here. Bow. If we say that slowly, it's bow. Bow. Like Sauron. It's bow. So it's the same sound. Bow. Sauron. Smaug. Right? It's the same sound.
Sauron or Smaug bows.
Yeah. Yeah. Smaug. Sauron. Bauch. All right. What happens when you write on this and you move forward? Does it go away?
I don't know. I don't think I'm writing on the document, so
I don't think so.
It's just on the Zoom.
You're writing on the screen. Yeah. Okay. So let's. I'm going to show y'all different ways of writing the tetar when you have more than one. So deed, the word deed, and we were talking about how the E goes above the next consonant, but here you have 2 of them. So you could, if you wanted to, you could put every single vowel on a carrier. You don't have to put them above the consonants. People will try and correct you all the time if you do that, so I don't suggest it, but you could. So the very top one is doing it that way. You've got D, E over a carrier, E over a carrier, and then D. That's deed. Now, the next one, you've got a D and then an E teta over a carrier, and then the next E is above the D. You'll see that from most people. The next one is D, and then 2 E's over a single D. And that just tells you there's 2 E's there. And then the next one, you'll see this more with people who try to write phonetically, and that is D, and then an E over an extended carrier. The carrier is a lot longer, telling you this isn't one, it's more than one. It's longer, right? And then the D at the end. So Matt and I have also adopted the top way for these types of words because it's faster to read. Most of the things that we do are just, we do it so people can read it faster.
Or this one, just having the 2 E theta next to each other, they just jump out really easy. That's a double vowel. E.
Yeah, we very rarely do the second or fourth one because it's harder to read the second one than the other ones. And that's what most people do. Most people do that second one.
But all of these, the point is that all of these are correct.
They're all right.
There's just a variation in style. And, it's good to know all of the styles so you can read other people's writing. But there's a list of things that you shouldn't do. And as long as you're not doing those, you're just as right as anyone else. And if someone tells you you're wrong, then they're wrong.
They're wrong. Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty flexible.
If you write something to us and we say, I would do this, it doesn't mean you're wrong. It means this is the way that other people will be able to read it better. But if you write something and we say, you're not supposed to do that, that means you did one of those things that's on that list of don't do's, which there's not very many of those. It's mostly just here's the best way to do it. And all these other ways are acceptable, but not as easy to understand. Okay, so the next word, any questions about deed and the things like that? Okay, the next one.
You could, the same thing with like book or
coop, stuff like that. So looking at many, so M-A-N-Y, many. So we already showed you can write M with an A over the N, and then there's the Y theta over the carrier because it's hanging off at the end and there's nothing to stick it over and it can't be over nothing. So you put that carrier there. With the final Y, instead of putting that carrier and that theta, you can put 2 dots under the final consonant before the Y. This is not for diphthongs. So today, you don't do that with today. But when you have a final Y that's following a consonant.
Yeah. So we could have also done that with family.
Right. You could have put 2 dots, show them where the dots would go.
Yeah. And in fact, with lambe, usually put them inside. It kind of just hooks around it nicely.
Yeah, it's pretty,
So we could have also done that. And in fact, I would say that it's actually preferable to do.
I would do that, except for the fact that we were teaching you how it works on this one slide. Yes. I would never write family like this, but when I'm teaching you how it works, we do.
Yeah, same thing. Like this is many. This is how you're following the system, but
that's preferable.
More common.
It's prettier. It takes less space, and it's faster to read.
It's not prettier. That's just you.
You'll start agreeing. You'll see this. You go, oh yeah, that looks a lot better that way.
The family, I agree because it looks like a happy face.
Well, and there's the answer to your question, Chad, about when I go to the next slide without erasing my annotation. The annotations are still there.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so now since we looked at many that way, we want to show you something else. Mine, right here, it's real similar to many, but there's M with an I theta over the N right there. And then there's the E over the carrier, kind of like we did the Y over the carrier. So on mine, you can put the single dot under the final consonant. But when you do a single dot, it is always for a silent or a schwad, which is almost like it's not there. vowel. So you wouldn't put a dot when you actually hear the E. You only put the dot when you don't hear the E. So that, let's keep on going, and I believe that'll become clearer whenever we keep. There's a like the word coated, that E before that D, you wouldn't put a dot because that E, it can be heard, coated.
Yeah.
Right.
For now, I would just say leave it at just a silent E.
A silent E. Yeah.
So I have a question.
Okay.
Did Tolkien write the English words like this with a silent E as a dot at the end?
Yeah, he did. Most of the time.
Right.
Tolkien was not 100% consistent, which for anyone who knows Tolkien's work shouldn't come as a surprise.
Yeah, go back to the first page where you've got the front of the Lord of the Rings on there, and if you can zoom in, can you zoom in on that? And then go to the very bottom there, and we're going to show you. That is, if you can zoom in that much.
Yeah,
so
this is the most I can zoom in.
Okay,
is that readable for you?
Can y'all see herein? It's right up, right there. That's herein. And it's written. He's going to show you how it's written. Here we go.
So here's the H.
Yep.
And then E, followed by an R, which has an E after it. But that E in herein is silent, and he's done it as an underdot. And then I, N.
So write it out to the side for you. Yeah. Here.
And you'll notice that the E and the I are not a diphthong. So he didn't try to do like an EI diphthong.
That's not herine. That's
so he did HER, and he erases because that's kind of
yeah, do it in Tengwar.
You can also change colors. Just to so you...
yeah, still on the default.
That's for the pros.
Yeah.
Write it in Tengwar for them, bigger so they can see it better. HER, silent E. And then there's the N. And then there's the I. So H, E, show them the H, E, R, silent E, I, N.
So that's kind of a complicated word, but you asked. You know what he did.
That just kind of means like inside, right? Herein, inside. Same word. Herein is an old way of saying inside. Okay, so we can go back to where we were after you erase your markups.
I think the other markups, if before you close your slides, they'll ask you to save it. So then it'll disappear.
Yeah, we don't
You're
do
in PowerPoint edit mode right now.
Okay, let's go.
The annotations are Zoom's annotations.
Okay.
So it shouldn't affect your slides later.
Yeah,
hopefully not. Okay, so either one of us can talk about this.
Yeah, so I'll talk about this one. This is the great debate. Orthographic versus phonetic style, and we've already had some topics that have touched on this a bit. But so orthography is the letters that you use in a word, and phonology is the sounds of the words. So for instance, sight, and sight all have different orthographies, right? They're all spelled differently, but they have the exact same phonology.
They sound the same.
They sound the same. Whereas tear rhymes with ear and tear rhymes with air, have the same orthography, they're spelled the same, but they have different phonology. Now, the way that Tolkien has set up this system looking at this table, you can tell it's based entirely on phonetics. Like this Tengwar here is not a T. It's a T sound. This is not a P. It's a P sound. So the system is phonetic. But that can lead to some challenges when you're writing, because that means even just slight variations in dialect would mean that you're writing the system very differently. Yeah, so like if Chad and I, with very different accents, were to write the same passages, they would be written differently, aside from just stylistic choices like this. That's where I got this. I made this little cartoon here. You can't understand my Tengwar writing? What's wrong with you? It's not my fault your accent is strange. It's actually interesting because when you see some of Tolkien's more phonetic writing of Tengwar, you can get some insight into the accent that he had. And I'm like, oh, he says that word differently than how I would. So it's hard to be completely one end of the spectrum or the other, especially orthographic. But we encourage people, when you're first learning, to try to be more orthographic, because it simplifies a lot of the questions and difficulties that come from how you would write, especially the vowels. We have a Tengwar chat where people are learning and commenting on it. And I feel like over half of the comments that people are making are just discussing like the pronunciation of vowels. And I'll chime in being like, if you're doing this orthographically, this would be a non-issue. So for instance, if we were to write the word, light, that has a silent GH in there. If we were doing it phonetically, we would just have, I guess we'd have
AI.
Lamba. Yeah, this I sound, a long I, in our English is ait. Ait. Gives us that long I sound. Light. So that would be the phonetic writing of light. But when you're learning and you're just trying to sound it out, it's just more confusing than if I were to write it out as I would. And so orthographically.
While he's writing that, let me explain something else.
Can you please write it above, because the captions cover it?
Oh, okay.
Oh, I got you. So what I was going to say, think about all of you who are English as your second language, or maybe your third or more. But if you know what the word light means, it doesn't matter if you pronounce it differently than we do. But if we write it the way we pronounce it, and you don't pronounce it that way, you won't know what it says.
Hence the cartoon.
Hence the cartoon. So if you write LAIT in regular Roman alphabet, LAIT, the majority of people are going to think that says late. And they're going to say, why did you write late? They don't realize that it's light. But if you write LIGHT, everyone is going to know what the word is, no matter how they pronounce it themselves.
And I probably picked a complicated example with the GH, because there's GH that sounds like an F, and there's GH that's silent. There's GH that sounds like a G. And so for right now, to avoid a lot of that complexity, just know that this,
that's a silent GH. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we go back to the table here, my annotations came with me.
Yeah.
See how this GH is the two bows to the left with it's closed and a long stem. Sometimes you'll see a character where the long stem extends upwards and downwards. Like on the ring inscription, if I go back to the ring inscription, you can see lots of those where it goes up and down. Sometimes those are purely aesthetic and they don't change the sound.
Just for beauty.
Yeah. In this case, this is commonly used for a silent GH. So I'm sorry that I picked a complicated detail for the orthography versus phonology example, but again, just for demonstrating the principle, if you know that, okay, this symbol means a silent GH, then you can just read it. This is L-I-G-H-T, and I know the GH is silent. This is light.
Even if you wrote it the other way without the extended, if you just wrote L-I and then the other GHT,
right,
everyone would know what it says.
If I didn't have that.
Yeah, and if you wrote it the way it is below there, a lot of people wouldn't know what it says.
Because most people don't think through what are the actual sounds in a diphthong and break it down to the fundamental root vowel sounds.
Spanish is mostly
most
phonetic,
people would think that it says that, and they'd be like, what word is that?
Yeah, and so to most of the people that I know, people in my life outside of Tolkien, they would say late right there. People who don't know Tolkien stuff, they would say that says late. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't realize that's supposed to be late.
So that's where, So I suggest that people try to just be orthographic and don't worry about so much about this, trying to be as phonetic as possible. And it takes a little bit of practice to find that balance. Okay. So then we're coming near the end here. Let me just close out with a few tips and comments. We mentioned this before. There's not always a definitively correct way of writing. People will often say, how do you write this? I can say, well, I can show you how I write it, or I can show you a number of ways to write this. Tolkien himself wasn't consistent. I don't know how much of it was he was evolving his style and how much of it was just he was inconsistent. But when you look at examples of his writing, you won't see him consistently sticking to the same style or set of rules. And Christopher often used different choices than his dad did. I find this being very analogous to his legendarium, where Tengwar never ended up in a static definitive form, just like the Silmarillion or the Lord of the Rings. It never ended up in a static definitive form. I use the example, what's the history of how Celeborn and Galadriel got together? Which one's right? I can tell you which one was published in the Lord of the Rings. I can tell you which one is maybe most complete, maybe which one is latest, but which one is right? I don't know. That's a hard question. And it's the same thing with Tengwar. I can't always tell you which one's right. I can just sort of give you the options. I can tell you how Galadriel and Celeborn didn't get together. There's certainly a number of wrong answers.
It's just like Tengwar.
They didn't meet at a bar,
Right. It's just like Tengwar. There are a bunch of different versions, and Tolkien never said which one was the right one. And so people are going to argue that the way that they think is right. And it's not true. Yep. There's just like what he was saying with they didn't meet at a bar. That's on the list of things you don't do. Tengwar has a list of things you don't do. And if you don't do those, you're right. If you list one of the 3 ways that Galadriel and Celeborn met, then one of those 3 ways you say it. And I'm going to say, yeah, that's one way. And if somebody says, no, that other way is not true, I'm going to say you don't know that, because that's all opinion based off of which version you like best, or whether you think that chronology has more effect. The same way with the Tengwar. There are things that Tolkien wrote in Tengwar that I can tell he was confusing himself between modes. He was writing something in English and he accidentally used Quenya mode on 1 or 2 letters. He was writing something in Quenya. He accidentally used Balerion mode in 1 or 2 letters. He wrote this stuff as he was making it up. And therefore, there wasn't anybody like us there to say, hey, you just messed that up, and I know why you messed it up. He was the only person who knew how to do it when he did it.
Yeah. So my suggestion is find your preferences for style, and that will only come through doing it, and then just try to be consistent. But it's still really good to learn all of the different styles that are out there so that you can read other people's writing for people who have made different choices. And the best way to practice is to find a pen pal, someone to write back and forth to, so you get practice reading and writing. It just makes things so much better. Don't just sit down with a notebook and try to do it all yourself. It's so much easier to write back and forth with someone.
So all of you who are listening to this, including those of you who are listening to the recording later, you should get together and start writing things to each other in Tengwar. When you read someone else's, look at what you think it says, and if any of it doesn't say what you think they meant for it to say, or you can't tell, you talk to them and you see which one of you is mistaken, or
was it just a style choice?
Just a style choice, because there's a lot of times when people start writing this, you also have the trouble of reading people's handwriting. Being very legible in your handwriting with Tengwar is a must, because if you aren't writing very legibly, it is extremely hard to tell what people were trying to write.
Yeah, I was feeling very sloppy just writing with my mouse here. This is actually what my handwriting normally looks like on this front page.
Yeah. So that stuff at the top, look at the top. The top says Chad Bornholdt and Matt Cannon will bring them all, and in the darkness bind them at Texmoot, where the stars are big and bright.
Was way too fast. Funny.
I don't expect you to be able to read that fast, but okay. So now going down here, and normally, yeah. So basically, in case anyone wants to see a 2-hour version of this with just me teaching someone who had never done it before, there's a video. If you just Google my name and Tengwar, it'll come up. Or you can go to my website, texastolkien.com, and you can find it there. When you go to the video, there will be a spreadsheet with the video. If you open the video, you'll see the link for the spreadsheet. If you open the spreadsheet, you'll see the link for the video.
Could you do it? Could you open the spreadsheet so you can show us what it looks like? Because it's
so you open the YouTube. You open the YouTube thing, Matt, and I'll open the spreadsheet.
Oh yeah, Matt is sharing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I have a question.
I just clicked on that and it took me.
There you go.
Okay.
And so this is, he didn't share the sound from it. So the sound
and I paused it anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the video. And if you look down there in the description has a link to download it.
Is that this right here?
Yeah. There you go. So, and and there's a little thing where you could click to go to different parts of the training. So if you just need to look at a certain part of it, you can. Okay, so I'll open the spreadsheet in a second, but well, that's what the spreadsheet looks like. So after we get through with this, we'll do that. So first of all, let's go. Matt, you don't know this, but J.R.R always has a Kahoot quiz at the end of her meetings, and we have actually performed that service for you this time.
No way, really?
It's not Kahoot though. It's not Kahoot because you can't do this in Kahoot. So go to the next slide. All right, now with everyone watching, what does the first word say?
So we have the copy of that one slide over here just as a cheat sheet.
Yeah, thank you. This is English mode. English mode.
It's English mode, and I know that when you haven't become real comfortable with the table, it can take a while to hunt through. So I can help guide through and help you find where these Tengwar are on the table.
So that's a left-facing open one bow downward stem.
Yeah.
So that is a plosive unvoiced palatal. That's right. That says Chad. All right. Everybody see that?
So it's a CH, ch, d.
D. Exactly. Next.
Okay. Next one. So we have Roman.
Roman. And then what's the vowel?
I don't want to say, but nobody else does. Oh, I'm dying.
I don't want to call on anybody.
Ring.
What is it? What is it?
Ring.
It's ring.
Ring. That's right. Show them the NG so they get that reinforced. See, that right there, that is an NG. That's the ng. Yeah, that's the for any word that ends that way. You see that all the time. You see that dot over that NG everywhere.
Yeah, that's an ing.
ING. Okay, the next one.
This guy here.
I'm not watching the chat. Is anybody else answering in the chat?
Gimli.
Gimli, exactly.
We have a G, I, M, L, I.
Yep, exactly. Okay, this one's a little tougher.
I always confuse the O and the U. I have a problem with them. Isn't it so, right?
Yeah.
So Arondi's real name's Willie, right?
I mean,
right?
but
yes. So
it is a podcast. He got it right. And you'll notice that, so I typed this up just in an online transliterator, and it chose to use Silme here. I personally would have done Silme Nuquerna.
That's a really
you're
good
not
example.
cramming the A Tatar over this.
Yeah, that's ugly. It's if you didn't write it very carefully, then you could think that the A goes over the previous letter if you weren't careful in your writing it. So
but again, you see this enough that, I mean, this is also common enough. You see that.
Okay, last one.
We have the
Darkness.
Darkness, that's right. D, A over R that precedes a consonant, and then K, and then N, and then E, and then you've got an S, and then that line under it means double this consonant. When you see that line under a consonant, that means double the consonant. Now, careful not to put that line so close to the bottom of the consonant that it looks like the consonant's closed. You know, you wouldn't want to put you know what I'm saying? You wouldn't want to put that line on the bottom of an N because then it would look like an M.
And you could also use Silme Nuquerna here.
Yes.
This is, how about this? Double S?
So it says here that you can use essay and essay Nuquerna, but
for Z sounds.
For Z sounds. So that's only S like in music.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't use it for.
I'm confusing modes. Okay. right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Because you're thinking
it won't be the last time, I'm sure.
Yeah. Because that double S is in Quenya, that esse. That's why it's called esse, because it's two S's. Esse.
This is how I would write this. I would use Silme Nuquerna.
Yeah.
Because I have a theta over it, and then you would just have your line to indicate two S's that would close like that.
And sometimes you'll see people draw the line all the way through it, where it's wider than that.
And I hate that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Okay, so that's darkness. Let's go to the next one.
That's it.
No, there's one at the bottom, right?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the whole slide?
Yeah.
Oh, you're hardcore.
Okay.
Oh.
So when we did this at Texmoot, this was a handout. We walked through
this
the
quiz
in class, and then we handed this out to the people in the room to work on it.
Erica, what's that first one say? I know you can get that one.
Where's this guy?
Oh, not yet. She can write it if she wants to.
Yeah.
With pens.
So more than one person can write at a time?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
okay.
what.
Okay.
That's what I mean. I like that. Yeah.
Not sure if I translated it right, but I'm going to say man.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Right.
Man. Okay. So who else we got?
And then word for the shortest one, I'm sure.
What's that?
Manuel went for the shortest one. After man.
That's right.
The shortest one after man.
That was thin.
Thin.
Number 6.
Number 6 is thin. That's correct. And you notice that TH is the unvoiced TH. It's thin. That's why it has one bow. If you were saying then, you'd have to have two bows on there. Every now and then we see somebody try to write the word then with that kind of TH on there. The sule. When you for the then, the voiced TH, which Tolkien writes as a DH. That's Anto. That's why like Galadrim and Caradhras, those are DHs because in the original language they were written with two bows.
So this last one highlights something that we didn't go over.
Yeah.
It is correct. It's San Antonio. We have the S-A-N, San, and the A, and this line is when you nasalize a consonant. So this is a T. I'm going to write it up here. And like this becomes a nt. And
basically right before you're going to make the T sound, you're going to go t, t, t. But right before you pull your tongue away, you just push air out of your nose, then you open your tongue. So you go,
it's like combining this nasal, this n, t, and T. N, t. And same thing with the D. Nd. And if you do it with
your lips
Parme, with the
closed,
P, then what's the nasalized version of this? It's So this is like in lamp, and this is like an umbar. In fact, you can see. Look at the name of it, umbar. So that's what the line over it is. It's a nasalization. Yep.
That's correct.
It is archery. Yep.
Aragorn.
Yeah, with that voice.
Aragorn.
Aragorn. Now there's
So
yeah, okay, no.
So Chad, one of the things I was thinking of, I'm curious to get your take on it. We have 2 R's, right? One that's before a vowel and one that's not.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's because, so in your English and my English, we don't roll our R's.
We don't, yeah.
But in Tolkien's English, he did.
It's like they're ours.
But he didn't always do it.
No.
And is it just a natural expression of when you would be rolling in one R versus the other? Like it happens to be in front of a vowel versus not?
Yes.
And because we've lost that rolling of the R in American English, now it's just kind of this obscure rule of you use this R in front of a vowel and this one in front of a consonant.
The Brits don't really do it anymore either, but they don't do it like we do, but they don't roll them. But basically,
again, British English is like 50 different dialects. It's not one thing.
Exactly. So basically the trilled R, which that's the Roman, which is basically if it's going to come before a vowel, you're supposed to trill it, even though nobody does. And then if it comes before a consonant, you don't trill it. Like, you know how like in the movies they would say Mordor.
Yeah.
And it's not coming before a vowel. It's supposed to be Mordor. It's not supposed to be like more.
Yeah, we were having this discussion with the guys the other day because they were like, there were arts, but no, one is an ra, the other is a ra, right?
Yes, there you go.
Roman, and the other will be ore.
The Spanish speakers are going to get it.
So I think that will be much more intuitive for you than it will be for us Americans.
But because it comes from English, so it looks like they're the same, but they're not, because and it's messy anyway.
So
y'all actually do 2 R's there, don't you? Y'all do 2 R's for that, don't you?
Not necessarily, because if it's at the beginning, it's just one. Okay. So it's ra, but if it's in the middle, it will be double. Perro.
Yeah.
So
but before a consonant, it will be a ra. Right.
The shadow facts, which addresses the X question that he had before.
Yes.
So X is really just.
There's 2 X's. There's 2 X's. Or a GS.
In this case, it's a KS. Facts. And so what you do is you write
a K.
Quesa, which is the K sound, and the S is represented by just like a little hook on it. This curl is used as an S in a few different places, most often as pluralization. So like if I were to write, we'll do this first one.
So R is rolled after an N?
Enrollado. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So there's men's.
Yeah, so men's. Here we go. Men.
That's usually how you do an S, like a trailing S for pluralization. Or
but he also did it for the end, for a final S on a lot of stuff. So
again, he's Tolkien. But so this sort of thing shows up in a few places as an S, and this KS for an X is one of them. And I don't particularly like the font that this online
it kind of screws it up,
did, because it didn't connect the curl to the K. It looks like it's just a stray tatar floating underneath. So that was weird. It should be more like this. So that's how you do an X. And for the X that's pronounced
GZ.
Like Alexander, like Alexander.
You would just do the G version. Like that.
Too
In
much.
practice,
That's very difficult to recognize for Spanish speakers.
Well, if you just think about the K and the G, just think about Shadowfac or Aleg instead of saying.
For me, I never do this because this is starting to get into a phonetic differentiation.
Yeah.
And I tend to be more orthographic. So I see
he just
X,
does the top one.
This is how I write X. That's me.
Yeah, you can do it the way the top one is only. But if you wanted to do like looking at the K versus G, the velar versus the velar plosive unvoiced versus the velar plosive voiced, you've got the K, K, and then the G. If you notice that you see the relationship there, the K and the G, and then you've got the H and the G, and now you've got the Khs and the Gus. It's just the same relationship between all those letters. The K becomes a G, and you can stick an H after it, and you can stick an S after it.
So we have
TS and PS only happen in the Kirth. The TS and the PS. Well, if what you're wanting to do is show how they pluralize them, so Nolondili is putting on here to draw the PS and the TS. So do the TS and the PS for him.
The TS?
Ants.
Yeah, like ints, exactly. Matter of fact, that'll get the nasalization line also.
Yeah,
this
that
is going to be
an interesting one.
This is going to be one syllable, one Tengwar wide. ENTS.
And then it's the nasalization of the T, the tinko. So it's ents.
Yeah.
I was saying ants like the insect, but okay.
That
would be the same thing. You
just do the dot dot dot. Yeah.
Once I get the eraser, I don't know how to get my annotations. Okay.
So you can also do amps. There's the P.
And I just extend it out with a hook.
There's an
MP. Nasalization.
And there's amps.
So that's amps, like a guitar amp. Amplifier.
Guitarista.
So, like, what is amps? Okay.
Amps, yeah.
I'm about to have to leave, but can I interrupt with a question that I have anything to do with this directly? I'm sorry, but I'm about to have to go and I'm curious. What do y'all think of Glamscribe?
I don't use it a whole lot. I've gone to it before whenever I needed to have something to like send through the internet, and the Tekendil website didn't work as well. But if you want to have something typed up to send to somebody, Tekendil, show them that website, Tekendil. It's really fast and it's usually right.
Tekendil,
yeah.
TECEND.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's also a handbook on this page.
Thank you all.
Tekendil, yes, that's the best place to go. The majority of things it'll spit out, they're going to be close.
Yeah, you can choose your mode.
Yep, including Spanish. There's Espanol.
Yeah,
and then write amigo at the top.
And you can choose a style as well. So yeah,
so just write amigo there. Amigo.
Now, if we tell it that amigo is English mode, you'll see how it actually switches.
Tell Terry that we all say hello.
That's amigo. The other was
Chad says hi.
Tell her everybody in South America says hi too.
Yeah. So this website is my go-to. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
And it has This is the website that I actually used for this thing at the top that we wrote about Chad, Bornholdt, and Matt. Bring them all in the darkness behind him. So.
Okay.
What was 13?
13. This is
okay.
Ka, and then it's an AU diphthong.
Oh.
And then this is a GH and a T.
Caught.
So it's caught.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I was going with W, so I didn't make
sense. So I was going to spell it. I was going to spell it the worst way you could possibly say. I was going to say KAWGHT. You still know what it says, right?
Yeah.
No, but when I started KAG, I was like, what is this?
Yeah, but if you but still
okay,
you saw
this one is also tricky because it's kind of a weird word. It's GL and then an OAM, gloaming. It's a word that Tolkien likes. It's another word for twilight.
That's a word that like the Spanish people are probably not going to know as much as. Yeah. It's a very rare English
He really
word.
liked it because he liked to, almost every time he used it, he would alliterate with it. The gleam and the gloaming.
Yeah. So everybody cool? We got a good recording for people to watch later. And
hopefully.
Yeah.
So there we go. Namarie.
And you notice how this gives away, if you look at Namarie, it actually gives away the pronunciation when you know how to spell it in Tengwar, because the N and then the A and then the M, and then that next A, because it has a diacritical mark above the Latin letter A, you have to use the long carrier. That right there tells you hold that out longer. And that is the stressed syllable. Then there's the R preceding a vowel, which is the I, and then that E at the end with the diaeresis above it on the Latin letter, the double dot, that just means not a diphthong. So that's Namarie.
This is all Quenya mode.
That's Quenya. It's backwards looking for most people. It's more like Spanish. Like instead of going vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, you go consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel. But the thing about it is, a lot of people, English speakers, think that to go to Quenya mode, everything is the same except consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel. That's not true. That's close for the Spanish mode, but the Quenya mode, the consonants mean different things. Yeah. So they think that they're going to be spelling things correctly.
These make different sounds.
They make different sounds. They don't stand for the same letters as they stand for in English. And there's another thing that we see a whole lot that I mentioned during Texmoot, and that is people will download the font for Tengwar to their computer, and they'll think that the font of the Tengwar is just on their keyboard. So they think they can type whatever they want to type in English and then change the font to Tengwar, and it'll say what they wanted to say in Elvish.
And it's just complete gibberish.
It's gibberish. It doesn't mean anything. And so we actually call that the mode of Baloney Land, because in the Second Age, there was the mode of Beleriand. So we call that the mode of Baloney Land because they're full of it.
Yeah. But anyway, I know that we're at time. So
cool. That was amazing. Thank you very much.
All right.
Claps, virtual claps. I could do it like this, but I did a reaction.